I'm a 12-year-old boy trapped in a 56-year-old man body. So this is going to be a really difficult episode for me to get through without smiling and laughing at your company name.
Well, we like to have fun. So,
all right, Kyla. Well, let's tell the audience all about Foxy Box Laser and Wax Bar. How did you get started?
I got started 12 years ago now. I started Foxy Box. I used to go to a lady out of her house to get my waxing services done. And if I didn't pre-book with her every 3 weeks, it was really hard to get an appointment. She didn't have online booking, things like that. So I'd have to text her or leave a voicemail. She'd call back. So the idea of a wax bar came to fruition. The only other options at that time were a high-end spa where you're going to spend $100 in a dimly lit room with someone who probably doesn't want to be doing the service, or the back of a nail salon for cheaper that probably didn't have the highest hygienic standards. So the idea of creating a wax bar that was fun, affordable, and convenient came to fruition. I was a bartender at the time, so I used my bartending tips. I put myself through school. They showed me one Brazilian in school and went, okay, you're certified, and sent me on my way.
No way.
So as I was learning and practicing to get good at Brazilians, I used to offer my customers a shot of tequila or whiskey before their service to help them relax so that I could get fast and good at Brazilians. I had a dining room of my shared house. It was Foxy Box. I turned that into my little waxing room. Bartending proved to be the best platform for me to start my business because every girl woke up with a Foxy Box card in their pocket. So that was the best way to grow my business. I was starting to get too busy. My roommates were like, "Kai, you can't bring strangers to the house anymore." I was probably having 5 customers come to the house a week, and they're like, "You got to stop bringing customers here." The cool thing about bringing customers to the house, though, was I had to make people feel comfortable. It was, they were like, "Where is this Foxy Box?" They would be kind of confused. I was Foxy Box. I had to provide that energy. So that created the foundation of the brand. Like, you got to make people feel really comfortable doing this service. So from there, I went out, found my own space, a little 10 by 10 room in the back of a jewelry store downtown. And at this time, Frank, there wasn't wax bars. Like, this concept wasn't around in Canada anyway. So people would see the sign, and I started getting walk-ins, and I started getting busy, and I got busy really quickly. So from there, I needed my own space. I went out, found my own space with a waiting room, set my own hours, things like that. And then I started getting busier. I had to hire some staff. I trained the same way I was trained, which was I went to my best friend and went, "Hey, I need a waxer. I'm fully booked. I'm too busy. Do you want to wax?" She went, "Yep." I showed her one Brazilian and went,
Wow.
"Here you go." And luckily for me, I have very talented friends, because that could have been the end of Foxy Box right there. We now have like a huge 5-day training program for all of our magicians, we call ourselves. And so we have a training curriculum for that. But that was 12 years ago now. And fast forward to today, we've got 18 locations across Canada, 4 more under construction. And hopefully one day we'll be in the US and worldwide.
Wow. Okay. So for those that are interested,
so that's our story.
That's the story. So for those that are interested in opening a Foxy Box in the US, you have an FDD that you're hoping to have by year end here, 2024. So that's the goal for next year. Wow.
Our goal is to enter the US by next year. We want to come to market in the US. So we're really excited to come down south.
Sweet. So you started this business in 2012, right? But your first franchise location opened in Canada in 2019. What was there like a defining moment that you had? What was this epiphany that you said to yourself, "I need to franchise this"?
Frank, my goal from the beginning has always been to franchise. I knew I was going to start a wax bar. We were going to do Brazilians. I was going to call it Foxy Box, and I was going to take over the world one box at a time. That was my motto, and it still is my motto. And so that's always been my vision from before I even opened my first one. Having said that, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know what the hell that actually meant,
Of course.
Opening a franchise. So, I mean, I could write a book about my mistakes, but my first franchise or license agreement failed. We separated with them. And that was my biggest learning experience. I call it my Harvard education. That was 2015 or 2016. And then after that went south because I didn't know what I was doing. I put a pause on everything, hired a franchise business coach, systemized everything, and then we went back to market in 2019, but more prepared than ever.
Nice. I hope, if you don't mind me asking, it is common, unfortunately, that as entrepreneurs, we think we're doing the right thing, and we sometimes franchise by accident, where we license, but it really was a franchise. Is that what happened to you back in 2016-ish?
That's exactly right. And it was a license. It wasn't a franchise. But if you behave like a franchise, it is a franchise. But that was the only way to get around in our province, BC, and there was another province at the time where you didn't need to have an FDD or an FA. So you didn't have to put out that money up front to create an FDD.
Okay.
So that's how we could. That's why we went that route to sell our first license agreement instead of a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you. I mean, that was to our detriment. FDDs are so important for everyone to understand what they're getting into and what their responsibilities are, what our responsibilities are, laying that foundation of what the relationship will look like.
Totally.
So, we thought, oh, this is cheaper. So that's how we're going to go franchise and get a license agreement. And we don't have to get this FDD in this big document. But I'll tell you, that document is so important to establish the relationship from the beginning.
It is, Kyle. I've always said that to me, the FDD, the beauty of franchising is that everybody's hands are above the table. Everything is being disclosed. Yeah. There is no question on what the franchise stands for. What are the rules? What is the franchisee getting? What is the franchisor's expectation? And the best franchisors from the very beginning are the ones, those founders or CEOs or presidents, whoever's leading the charge, is really intimately involved with the FDD, because none of us, you, myself, and most other people have no franchise experience, but we do hire franchise attorneys who give us advice on what our FDD or FA should look like. Our attorneys are trying to protect us, but aren't not necessarily giving us all the options. And that's why it's so important for us to truly understand the FDD and what the options are that go into it to deliver the best possible opportunity, and to more than protecting us, but giving us the best way of being able to sell our franchise opportunity to people.
Totally, for sure.
Yeah. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to franchise this. It's like 2018, 2019. And do you bootstrap the company? Do you bring in outside investors? What was your situation like back then?
Bootstrapping it, and still, it's still just me. I own the company fully. Back then, Frank, I was a bartender. So I don't know if you've ever bartended or been in the industry, but so you know that on paper we make about $17,000 a year, but in reality we probably make closer to 70. But it's all cash, right? Mm-hmm. Back then, banks wouldn't give me a loan. They would look at me, they would laugh at me when I'd go ask for a loan. So I used my bartending tips to fund my business. So, I worked 4 or 5 nights a week and then 5, 6 days a week starting my budding business. And after I was getting busy there, when I opened up my first storefront, I got a $50,000 loan. Finally, a bank was like, we'll give you 50 grand. So, I used my profits from my first location to fund my second location, and then use that money to fund my franchise ventures from my location. So I've been bootstrapping it. And now we are at a place now where banks are happy to work with us, which is great. But I definitely didn't have a big pocketbook when I started.
Yeah. The banks always want to give us the money when we don't need it.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I don't understand.
I understand. Yeah. I mean, I understand why they would do what they do, but it is, it's kind of, counterintuitive to what we need to grow our business, but I understand.
Totally.
Yeah.
Back then too, Frank, it was kind of a fun time for me when I didn't have a lot of money or didn't have a big budget, because we had to get creative.
Sure.
This, like with our marketing and where to find people and get people through the door. I didn't have a big budget. We didn't have an advertising fund. We didn't have extra money. So, to get through customers through the door, it was a lot of boots on the ground, grassroots marketing. Totally. One of my favorite stories that I love to share with everyone is The Bachelor Canada was looking for bachelorettes. And so one of my magicians, April Ace, she's a burlesque dancer. She's a vivacious, boisterous, beautiful Italian lady. And I went, they're going to pick you for the show. And if you're on that show, customers are going to want to book in with you. So I paid for her flight to Calgary to go audition. No way. They chose her. They put her on the show. And then her opening line was, "My name is April Ace and I'm a magician." And everyone in Victoria wanted to book in with her. My plan worked. So, getting creative with marketing and how to get people through the door was like, okay, how do we do things on a budget? And I used to send her out to do, flash mobs was a thing back then. Yeah. So I sent her and her burlesque dancers out to bars and did flash mobs and handed out Foxy Box swag. And so that was a fun time for me too, I always tell franchisees, like, don't forget about that grassroots, get out in your community, show face, because people will see businesses online, but they want to make a connection. Oh, I know the owner of that, or I met this person from that business. So getting out in the community is what I tell all my franchisees. It's so important.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.